So you've just got into cubing, and you already have a pretty good speed cube, like this RS3M 2020 right here, which is honestly pretty good for its price being $9 and just it having the performance of a flagship cube. But what should you buy next? Today I'm going to be talking about 5 things that most cubers should get, no matter whether or not you just got into cubing or if you are kind of already into cubing. Although this is definitely going to target a bit more people who already have a speed cube but are still trying to get good at cubing. So let's get started. So the first thing I would recommend is other puzzles, mainly 2x2, 4x4, 5x5, Pyraminx, Scube, whatever. 2x2 is definitely easier than 3x3 a bit. You definitely do use 3x3 algs in beginner's method for 2x2, and basically is an easier version of 3x3. 4x4 builds up on 3x3. You have to build the centers and the edges, and once you do that, it solves basically like a 3x3, except you can get cases where you wouldn't see on a 3x3 and you have to use a special algorithm called parity. I'll link a video down below by JPerm about parity and how that happens. And 5x5 is kind of like 4x4, although there is just a different type of parity, like only one parity instead of just having like OL and PLL parity. But knowing how to solve 4x4 and 5x5, it will definitely help you be able to solve bigger cubes. Bigger cubes will just basically be like 5x5, but you have more pieces to solve. It's definitely going to be more tedious. And then Pyraminx and Scube are just really easy. Yeah, let's get to the next one. So if you're going to be going to competitions, and I honestly recommend people, no matter how fast they are or whether or not they just got into cubing or they're really good at cubing, to go to a competition. And I think I've said this on like my first competition video, because I only recently just went to my first competition like 2 months ago, and then I went to 2 more competitions since. I recommend people to get a stack mat timer, because it's definitely going to be different from using CS timer and using the spacebar, but if you get used to it, you'll definitely get used to like, starting and stopping the timer at competitions and just getting the competition feel a bit. You could also go more in depth into it and get those displays and like have some like fancy like competition simulation. But what I just do is I just put on my table, I just have this mouse pad because I don't actually have a proper stack mat, and I just go on a CS timer, set it to typing, and just solve away. Although this is definitely a bit more expensive than just using CS timer, as this is $31, but I definitely still recommend getting this in order for you to get used to going to competition. The next thing I recommend here is cube lubes, and let's just talk about something about cubes first. So when you get a cube like the RS3M 2020 or some other cubes, sometimes some of these cubes out of the box are just bone dry. And while they do perform well out of the box sometimes and without lube, you definitely should lube your cube, as the more you use your cube, and most areas there's dust everywhere, all of these can build up in the cube and cause the cube to not feel that great pretty quickly. So I would definitely recommend at least like getting some lube or getting a lube service for cubes. But this is about just the specific lubes, and I honestly kind of like the Cubicles lubes because they have a really nice selection of lubes, and a lot of these are really unique and can get like a really unique feel. Like for your cube, like you could speed it up a bit, or you could make it feel kind of silky smooth, or there's a ton of different unique feels. Ones I would probably recommend are Mystic, as it's a kind of fast lube and it's also plant-based, made out of like aloe, and DNM37, it's just something I use to speed up my cubes, and Cubicle Lab Silk, which makes the cube silky smooth and it slows it down a little, but depends on how much you put in the cube. And Ace from Dignitas, which gives your cube a plush feel, and Weight 5, which is kind of a general purpose lube. I would honestly recommend some of the weighted lubes, and yeah, those are some of the lubes I recommend. So now we're in the territory of things that are nice to have, like not really like what you need, but I think it's definitely going to be honestly really nice. This one, Non-WCA puzzles, and this here is the Axis Cube one of my friends gave me for Christmas, and I also have a bunch of things like the Yushin Tiger, the 2x2x3, the 3x3x tube, and the Fisher Cube. And although you can't really compete in this, although there are sometimes like unofficial events at competitions where you could compete with some of those puzzles, I feel like these would be a really good thing to just build up your puzzle solving skills, and especially like this, the Axis Cube and the Fisher Cube are 3x3 shape mods, and then there's other ones that are completely different, like the Ivy cube, which is really easy, and all those cuboids. Like for example, you have the 2x2x3, and then the rest of the cuboids, like they kind of build up in the same way 4x4 through 7x7 do. Kind of just recommend getting just some of those to build up your puzzle solving skills a lot. And the last thing I would recommend getting are probably multiple bags, not just these, and I mean like these are kind of really good to store like your lubes, setup tools, and just other things. Like I have a manual here for the D'Artagnan, and so you could definitely put a lot of the stuff you want to take to competitions in one of these bags. I also think you should also get like a separate backpack or just a bag for competition things, like especially if you're going to be going to a bunch of competitions within like a short period of time. It's definitely good to have a dedicated bag, which I actually don't for some reason, and I just use my school backpack, and I regularly dump out everything from that backpack just so I could take stuff to competitions. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.